Imagine a world where angels descend to earth, abandoning their celestial glory to fulfill forbidden desires. A single act of rebellion that forever alters the fate of humanity. These beings, known as the Watchers, defied divine order and gave birth to the Nephilim, a race of giants who walked among us, wielding superhuman strength and an insatiable hunger for power and destruction. But who were these fallen angels? Why did they defy God? And what really became of the Nephilim? Are they merely ancient legends or echoes of a hidden truth buried for generations? Today we'll unlock the door to some of the darkest and most intriguing mysteries of biblical history. We'll uncover the hidden secret behind the giants and the fallen angels, a story of rebellion, forbidden knowledge, and a catastrophic judgment that shaped the world as we know it. Prepare to question everything you think you know about sacred history, because what's about to be revealed could change your perspective forever. This isn't just about myths, it's about truths that resonate even today, challenging us to understand the fine line between the divine and the profane. The journey begins now. Are you ready to face what has been hidden for millennia? Beneath the serene heavens, a rebellion brewed, one that would shatter the boundaries of creation itself. The celestial hierarchy trembled as a faction of divine beings, the Watchers, cast their gaze downward, drawn by a forbidden allure. They were once luminaries of the heavens, appointed as guardians over mankind, yet their resolve faltered as desire took root. The earth, a realm of innocence and mortality, became the stage for an unparalleled act of defiance. These beings, radiant with divine authority, made a fateful pact upon the sacred peak of Mount Hermon. Led by the resolute Shemhaza, they vowed to share the weight of their rebellion, binding themselves in a covenant of sin. With their allegiance sworn, they descended, shedding their celestial glory to walk among humanity. Their luminous forms dimmed as they cloaked themselves in mortal semblance, forsaking their stations in the heavenly court. Their hearts, once aligned with divine will, now burned with an insatiable yearning. They took for themselves the daughters of men, weaving an unholy union that would echo throughout the cosmos. The heavens recoiled at the blasphemous act, for this mingling of the eternal with the temporal was an affront to the divine order. As these unions bore fruit, the world itself seemed to groan under the weight of their consequences. Chaos stirred in the hearts of men, and the balance of creation tilted perilously. The Watchers' rebellion was not merely an act of defiance. It was a betrayal of trust, a corruption of purpose, and a harbinger of doom. The heavens watched in silence, but their fury grew. Judgment was inevitable, yet the rebellion of the Watchers was only the beginning. Their actions would set the stage for a cascade of events that would forever alter the destiny of both heaven and earth. The union was forbidden, yet it happened, a defiance so great that its echoes resound even now. The daughters of men, mortal and fragile, captivated the celestial Watchers, their beauty igniting a desire that could not be quenched. Driven by this lust, the Watchers abandoned their divine mandate and descended fully into the realm of humanity, blurring the lines between the eternal and the mortal. They walked among humanity, their forms cloaked in the guise of men. To the unsuspecting, they appeared as saviors, their presence awe-inspiring, their wisdom unmatched. But beneath their radiance lay a corrupting intent. They took wives from among the daughters of men, their unions birthing something the world had never seen before. These offspring were the Nephilim, giants, both in stature and in darkness. The Nephilim embodied the fusion of divine power and human frailty, a hybrid race unbound by the natural order. Their strength was unparalleled, their appetites insatiable, and their actions unrestrained. They roamed the earth like titans, subduing cities, consuming resources, and dominating mankind with an iron grip. Yet, this was not all the Watchers gave. They imparted forbidden knowledge to their human companions, secrets of the heavens that were never meant to be revealed. They taught the forging of weapons, the use of cosmetics, and the reading of the stars. This knowledge, once a sacred gift, became a tool for destruction, manipulation, and sin. The earth groaned under the weight of this corruption. Violence spread like a plague, and humanity spiraled into chaos, unable to resist the power of these half-divine rulers. The Watchers had introduced more than a race of giants. They had sown the seeds of a great reckoning. Judgment loomed on the horizon, a storm gathering in response to this unholy defiance. Born of forbidden unions, the Nephilim rose, a race of giants whose presence on Earth was as wondrous as it was terrifying. They were beings of immense power, their size and strength dwarfing mere mortals. Yet their existence was not a blessing but a curse, for their hearts were as dark as the rebellion that birthed them. They spread across the land, leaving devastation in their wake. The Nephilim, once innocent children of unnatural origin, grew into titanic creatures wielding abilities that set them above humanity but far from divinity. Their power became a tool of oppression, their strength a weapon of domination. They consumed resources with a hunger that could not be sated, devouring not only the fruits of the earth, but also the essence of human civilization. Their deeds were marked by unchecked violence. They tore apart cities and kingdoms, turning flourishing communities into ruins. As they warred among themselves and against humanity, their destruction was total, leaving the earth scarred and bleeding. Legends tell of the Nephilim building monuments to their own pride, colossal structures that defied nature, standing as grim reminders of their reign of terror. Their behavior mirrored the arrogance of their fathers, the Watchers, whose defiance had birthed them. The blood of rebellion ran thick in their veins, and with it came the knowledge and arts forbidden by heaven. The Nephilim practiced these arts, creating weapons of destruction and mastering the secrets of war. But their existence was unsustainable, an affront to the divine balance. Humanity, weakened and desperate, cried out for deliverance. The cries reached the heavens, and the divine wrath stirred. The Nephilim, towering and invincible as they seemed, were not beyond the reach of judgment. Their reign was a prelude to a cataclysm that would reshape the very fabric of the earth. As the Nephilim grew in power, the earth began to warp under the weight of their corruption. The forbidden knowledge granted to humanity by the fallen Watchers spread like a plague, tainting the hearts and minds of mankind. What began as a spark of forbidden enlightenment became a wildfire of sin and destruction. The earth groaned in despair, and the heavens watched, silent and expectant. The teachings of the Watchers, once hidden from the mortal realm, were now fully embraced by mankind. The secrets of metalworking birthed weapons that tore through the earth's defenses, while sorcery and enchantments twisted the minds of the people. The divine order that once held the natural world in harmony was no more. Humanity, now armed with knowledge too dangerous to wield, turned on itself. But it was not just mankind that was corrupted. The very fabric of nature began to decay. Creatures once innocent grew monstrous, plants withered, and the elements themselves seemed to rebel against the balance they once upheld. Earthquakes rumbled beneath the surface, and storms roared across the sky as if nature itself was revolting against the atrocities unfolding below. The Watchers, too, began to witness the consequences of their actions. Their once pristine forms were now twisted by the darkness they had embraced. Their power, while immense, could not protect them from the wrath that was building. The heavens, patient but unyielding, prepared for the reckoning that was soon to come. A storm was gathering, one far greater than any tempest that could rage on the earth. The Watchers and their monstrous offspring would soon face the ultimate judgment. No rebellion, no matter how great, could go unanswered. The cataclysm was inevitable. Justice was coming for all who had defiled the divine order. The heavens trembled as the moment of reckoning approached. The judgment of the Watchers and their monstrous progeny, the Nephilim, was inevitable. The divine decree had been issued, and no mortal or celestial being could alter its course. The time for rebellion was over. The earth, corrupted and defiled, stood on the precipice of divine destruction. The archangels, fierce and resolute, were sent forth as agents of the divine judgment. Their mission was clear: to bind the Watchers and cast them into the abyss. The Watchers, who had once been brilliant beings of light, now stood as fallen and damned, their beauty tarnished by their sin. Their bodies, once radiant with heavenly glory, had been transformed into grotesque mockeries of their former selves. The weight of their actions had altered them irrevocably. The heavens cracked open as the archangels descended, their fiery presence marking the beginning of the end for the rebellious beings. They found the Watchers hiding in desolate places, fearing the wrath that had long been foretold. The Watchers, whose strength had once been unmatched, now cowered before the archangels. Their fate had been sealed, and there was no escape from the punishment awaiting them. As the archangels bound the Watchers in chains, the earth itself seemed to mourn. The Nephilim, now giants without purpose, watched helplessly as their fathers were cast into the abyss. Their fate too was sealed. The earth, once a place of innocence, had become a battlefield for divine judgment. The giants, powerful as they were, could not escape the wrath that was about to unfold. The judgment of the Watchers and the Nephilim was not just a punishment for them. It was a warning to all who would defy the divine order. The heavens had witnessed the fall of the angels, the rise of the giants, and the destruction they had wrought. Now the earth would witness the cleansing fire of divine retribution. The earth trembled under the weight of divine retribution. As the Watchers were bound and cast into the abyss, their rebellion was no longer a shadow lurking in the corners of existence. It was a lesson carved into the very fabric of creation. But the punishment was not over. The Nephilim, the offspring of this unholy union, now stood on the precipice of their own annihilation. The giants, towering over the mortal realm, felt the sting of their inevitable end. Their power, which had once made them rulers of the earth, was now a curse. The judgment that loomed over them was a reflection of the havoc they had wreaked, an ancient and all-consuming fire destined to cleanse the earth of their presence. But the giants, born of a forbidden lineage, were not easily vanquished. Their strength was formidable, and their size made them nearly invincible in the eyes of mankind. Yet divine will is unyielding. The earth, which had once borne witness to their terror, now rose up against them. The giants' rampage had desecrated the land, leaving scars that would never heal. The celestial decree was clear: the Nephilim must be destroyed. As the heavens opened once again, floods of catastrophic proportions descended upon the earth. The waters rose, drowning cities, forests, and mountains, engulfing everything in their path. The Nephilim, unable to escape the wrath of the divine flood, were swept away by the rising tides. The world, once teeming with their monstrous presence, was now silent. The flood, a symbol of purification, did more than just wipe away the giants. It was a reset, a return to order after the chaos that had unfolded. The earth would no longer bear the weight of their corruption. The wrath of heaven had fallen, and the giants were no more. The world would begin anew, but the scars of the past would never be erased. The floodwaters receded, leaving behind a cleansed yet broken world. The giants were gone, swept away by the divine tide, but their legacy remained, etched in the ruins, in the scars of the earth, and in the very hearts of mankind. The earth had been purged, but the seeds of corruption still lingered in the human soul. The heavens, having unleashed their wrath, were now silent, but they watched, ever vigilant. Though the giants had been drowned and the Watchers cast into the abyss, the world was not free from the consequences of their transgression. The flood had not just erased their physical presence, it had marked the beginning of a new era, a time of reckoning for mankind. The echoes of the Watchers' defiance and the Nephilim's destruction would reverberate through generations. Mankind, now left to rebuild from the ashes of their corrupted past, faced a stark choice: to rise above the taint of their ancestors, or to fall into the same cycle of rebellion and sin. The flood had destroyed the giants, but it had not destroyed the darkness that still resided in the hearts of men. The world was once again at a crossroads, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The survivors of the flood, led by Noah, became the stewards of this new beginning. Yet even they could not escape the lingering shadows of the old world. The knowledge imparted by the Watchers had not disappeared. It had been passed down, hidden in secrets and forbidden teachings, waiting for the next generation to unlock it. The seeds of further rebellion were sown in the wake of the flood. Thus, the world moved forward, scarred yet determined. The divine retribution had come, but the journey was far from over. As the echoes of the past continued to haunt the present, humanity faced the greatest challenge: to preserve the purity of the earth, or to once again fall prey to the corruption that had nearly destroyed everything. As the world emerged from the flood, a fragile peace settled over the land. The giants were gone, the Watchers bound, and the earth itself had been cleansed. Yet despite the divine intervention, mankind was not free from the curse of their own desires. The flood may have washed away the physical evidence of the past, but the corruption, like a seed buried deep within the soil, began to sprout once more. In the aftermath of the great cataclysm, humanity was left with a choice: to rebuild in reverence of the divine will, or to once again embrace the forbidden knowledge that had led to their undoing. The survivors, led by Noah, began the difficult task of repopulating the earth, sowing the seeds of civilization once again. But even among these few righteous souls, the temptation of the past lingered. The ancient knowledge given by the fallen angels was not destroyed. It had been preserved in secret, passed down through whispered words and hidden texts. As generations passed, those who sought power and dominion over others found these teachings. They were drawn to the allure of the forbidden arts, secrets of the stars, of sorcery, of weaponry, tools that could bend the very fabric of nature to their will. The Nephilim, though drowned, were not entirely gone. Their bloodline, mixed with that of humanity, continued to thrive in secret. They were not giants in body, but in ambition. And as history unfolded, their influence grew once again. A new age of rebellion was dawning, one that would once more test the limits of divine patience. Though the flood had washed away the giants, it did not erase the scars they had left. Humanity was walking a razor's edge, its future hanging by a thread. Would they choose redemption, or would they once again fall prey to the same darkness that had consumed their ancestors? The battle for the soul of mankind was far from over. The seed of corruption had taken root, and its fruit was yet to be born. The earth, once cleansed by the flood, began to bear new fruit, but with it came new dangers. Though the giants and watchers had been cast down, the seeds of corruption lay hidden deep within the human heart. As mankind grew in numbers and spread across the lands, so too did the whispers of forbidden knowledge. The knowledge passed down from the fallen angels had not been erased. It had only lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to resurface. The temptation of power, of immortality, of forbidden wisdom, called to those who sought to wield control over the world. It was not just the giant's bloodline that carried the curse. It was also the lingering influence of the ancient teachings. From generation to generation, the arts of sorcery, weapon making, and forbidden rituals were passed down, albeit in secret. The foundations of an unseen rebellion began to form, built upon the ashes of the old world. The descendants of the Nephilim, although no longer giants in stature, carried within them a powerful and corrupting legacy. Their strength may have been diminished, but their ambitions were not. They sought to reclaim the power of their ancestors, to rule over creation as the fallen angels had once intended. As they rose in influence, they began to weave a new web of deceit, manipulating rulers, kingdoms, and nations to bend to their will. The heavens, ever watchful, saw the stirrings of this new rebellion. The flood had not ended the battle, it had only postponed it. The Creator had seen the hearts of men, and the eternal war between good and evil raged on. Would mankind once again succumb to the same darkness that had nearly destroyed them? Or would they choose to turn toward redemption? The struggle was just beginning, for the earth had not yet seen the full extent of the power and influence of the Nephilim's bloodline. As the generations unfolded, the world once again teetered on the edge of divine judgment. The stage was set for a final confrontation, a final battle between those who sought to reclaim the ancient knowledge and those who would fight to preserve the divine order. As the centuries passed, the seeds of corruption planted by the Watchers and the Nephilim began to sprout once more. The world, though recovering from the flood, was not immune to the dangers of its past. The hidden knowledge that had once given birth to giants, to sorcery, and to forbidden technologies began to seep through the cracks of society, once again luring humanity down the path of destruction. The descendants of the Nephilim, though no longer giants in form, still carried the cursed bloodline. They walked among men, unnoticed, but ever so present. Their ambition, their hunger for power, remained as unyielding as it had been in the days of the Watchers. These hidden descendants used their influence to manipulate rulers, instigate wars, and quietly spread the teachings of the Watchers, breathing life into the very darkness that had nearly destroyed the earth in the past. Mankind, oblivious to the true scale of the conspiracy unfolding before them, continued to struggle with the remnants of the ancient knowledge. Those who sought it, driven by greed and desire for power, were willing to pay any price to gain access to the secrets of the heavens. They studied the ancient texts, performed rituals in the dead of night, and delved into sorcery, unlocking powers that were never meant to be wielded by mortal hands. As the world moved toward the dawning of a new age, a dark undercurrent began to take shape. The power of the Nephilim bloodline, though scattered, began to converge. A new empire of darkness began to rise, hidden in the shadows, but powerful enough to challenge the divine order. The fallen angel's influence had never truly left the earth. It had merely been biding its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Once again, humanity found itself standing on the brink of annihilation. The flood may have wiped the giants from the earth, but the evil that had birthed them was not so easily destroyed. The coming conflict would not only decide the fate of mankind, but also determine whether the earth would succumb to the same fate as before, or whether it would find redemption in the face of its greatest test. The battle between light and darkness had only just begun. The world, once again on the precipice of disaster, stood poised for a new and terrifying reckoning. The bloodline of the Nephilim, though hidden for centuries, now began to resurface with a vengeance. The descendants of the fallen giants, possessing the same insatiable thirst for power, were ready to reclaim what they had lost, an empire of darkness that stretched from the heavens to the earth. The ancient knowledge, forbidden and deadly, whispered in the ears of kings and rulers, urging them to grasp the reins of destiny. The whispers spread like wildfire, infiltrating even the most sacred institutions. Secret cults devoted to the ancient gods, who were nothing but twisted reflections of the fallen Watchers, began to surface. These cults worshiped the Nephilim's bloodline, seeking to resurrect the power of the giants through dark rites and rituals. They believed that the ancient teachings held the key to untold power and immortality, and they would stop at nothing to bring this forbidden knowledge into the world once more. As these cults grew in influence, the earth itself began to respond. Signs of impending chaos appeared across the land, strange weather patterns, unnatural earthquakes, and unnatural storms in the skies. The very fabric of reality seemed to tremble under the weight of the ancient sins that were being resurrected. Nature itself was in turmoil, as if the world remembered the ancient transgressions and was preparing for the coming judgment. The battle for mankind's soul was not merely an internal struggle. It was a cosmic war between the forces of light and darkness. The Watchers' rebellion, their fall from grace, had left a permanent scar on creation, and now their legacy threatened to consume all. As the descendants of the Nephilim made their move, rallying followers and summoning the dark powers, the heavens once again stirred, preparing for an inevitable clash. Humanity, caught between the ancient forces of darkness and the ever-watchful eyes of divine judgment, would soon have to make a choice. The earth would either succumb to the corrupted reign of the Nephilim or rise against the darkness to reclaim the divine order. The fate of the world and the balance between good and evil hung in the balance. The final battle was approaching, and no one could predict who would emerge victorious. The earth was now a battlefield, a place where the forces of darkness and light were gathering for an ultimate clash. The Nephilim bloodline, having grown in strength and influence over the centuries, now rallied their followers with an unwavering determination. The secret cults that had long whispered in the shadows now stepped into the open, as the ancient knowledge of the Watchers, passed down through generations, was about to be unleashed in full force. The world trembled as the Nephilim's descendants called upon the forgotten powers of the heavens. Their rituals were no longer hidden. They performed them in broad daylight, in plain sight of kings and queens, generals and scholars. The ancient texts, long buried, long feared, were now being read aloud, their dark contents shaping the future of nations. The secrets of sorcery, of controlling the forces of nature, of bending the will of gods, were no longer confined to myth. The giants' bloodline had awakened, and they sought to reclaim dominion over the earth, bringing with them the ancient curses that had nearly destroyed it once before. But as the darkness stirred, so too did the forces of light. The heavens had watched as humanity grappled with its own descent into chaos. Divine beings, long hidden, began to take action, preparing for the war that was rapidly approaching. The archangels, mighty warriors of the Lord, began to descend once again, their purpose clear: to put an end to the power of the Nephilim, to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The forces of good had been silent for centuries, but now their fury would be unleashed. The battle would not be fought with armies alone. It would be a spiritual war, a war for the soul of humanity, for the very heart of creation itself. As the Nephilim and their followers prepared to unleash their forbidden power, they knew they faced the wrath of the Creator, a wrath that had once wiped out the giants and nearly destroyed the world. But this time, the judgment would be final. The earth had been corrupted once again, and the time for reckoning had come. Humanity stood on the brink of oblivion. The forces of light and darkness were poised for battle, and the earth itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final clash. Would the Nephilim's bloodline finally conquer the world, or would the divine judgment, long foretold, cleanse the earth of their evil once and for all? The fate of creation hung in the balance. The heavens and the earth now aligned for a cataclysmic confrontation. The Nephilim descendants, emboldened by their centuries of planning, had prepared for this moment. The rituals, the blood sacrifices, and the ancient invocations were all in place to bring forth the power of the Watchers, divine knowledge transformed into instruments of destruction. They sought to open the doors to forbidden realms, to bring forth the forces that had once ruled the heavens and the earth. Their ambition knew no bounds. But as the dark energy swelled, so did the divine countermeasures. The archangels, led by Michael, had gathered their celestial armies and stood ready to face the coming storm. The forces of darkness had long believed that they could manipulate the natural world with their knowledge of the cosmos. They had used their forbidden power to raise armies, to sway kings, and to set the earth on a path of destruction. But the time for their manipulation was over. The battle for the earth's soul was no longer just a battle of flesh and blood. Cosmic emotions fought in both the physical realm and the spiritual realm. The Nephilim's bloodline unleashed the force of dark knowledge, calling upon ancient entities and commanding elemental forces. The shook, cities crumbled, and mountains split apart. Yet despite the overwhelming force of darkness, the archangels fought unyielding power. They wielded the divine light as a sword, cutting through the darkened veil and striking at the heart of the Nephilim's power. As the battle raged, the heavens themselves seemed to open. Torrential storms, lightning that split the sky, and earthquakes that rocked the very foundation of the earth were signs of the war being waged. But in the midst of the destruction, there was a glimmer of hope. The divine forces, though outnumbered, fought with the knowledge that they were not alone. The spirits of the righteous, those who had lived in faith and righteousness, rose to join the fray, their strength amplified by the Creator's will. The final clash between the forces of darkness and light was drawing near. The Nephilim's forces believed their victory was certain, but they underestimated the power of the divine will. As the earth trembled and the skies burned, it became clear that the final battle for creation was about to occur. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. The final battle was at hand, and the world teetered on the brink of utter destruction. The forces of darkness, led by the Nephilim's bloodline, had unleashed their full power, summoning forbidden energies that cracked open the very fabric of the earth. But the celestial hosts, armed with the light of the Creator, were unwavering in their resolve to defend creation from the chaos that threatened to consume it. The battlefields were no longer confined to mortal lands. Heaven and earth had merged. The divide between the realms of greatness and between the forces of good and evil unfolded across the cosmos. The Nephilim, with their ancient knowledge and sorcerous might, had summoned forces that defied nature, beasts from the abyss, winds that carried death, and storms that could ravage entire cities. Their power seemed unstoppable as the world groaned under their weight, but the archangels fought with a fury born of divine purpose. Michael, leading the celestial army, took to the front lines. His sword, forged in the heart of creation, blazed with the light of righteousness. With each strike, a dark power fell, but the Nephilim's influence was far-reaching. Their bloodline was embedded deep in the world's fabric, and the battle seemed endless. The heavens rained fire, and the earth shook in response to each clash between light and darkness. The battle was not only physical, it was spiritual, as the fate of every soul, every piece of creation, was decided in its final moment. As the struggle continued, the veil between heaven and hell grew thinner. The fallen watchers, those who had once corrupted humanity, watched from the shadows, waiting to see if their children, descendants of the Nephilim, would succeed. But even as the dark forces seemed to gain their an unforeseen power began to rise. From the depths of human souls, those who had remained pure and faithful, came a resistance that no one had anticipated. The true believers, those whose hearts had remained devoted to the Creator, joined the fray. Their prayers became a shield, their faith a weapon against the onslaught of darkness. In the midst of the chaos, the earth itself began to fight back. The mountains trembled, the seas roared, and the skies themselves seemed to turn against the invaders. Nature, once again, was a force to be reckoned with. With the combined strength of heaven, earth, and righteousness, the tide of battle began to shift. But the war was not over. The fate of humanity still hung in the balance. Would the light of creation triumph over the darkness, or would the earth once again fall into ruin? The final moments were upon them, and the true cost of victory had yet to be revealed. The clash between the forces of light and darkness had reached its peak. The heavens were now a battlefield, as the archangels fought valiantly to protect humanity, while the Nephilim's descendants unleashed their most terrible powers to overthrow creation itself. Every strike, every battle cry, reverberated through the fabric of the universe, shaking the very foundations of existence. The world, already broken and scarred by the events of the past, stood on the brink of annihilation. The Nephilim, with their corrupt bloodline and forbidden knowledge, believed that victory was within their grasp. They had summoned creatures of nightmare, twisted by their ancient sorcery, to fight alongside them. These abominations ravaged the earth, and entire cities fell beneath their unholy might. The Nephilim wielded control over the elements, fire, water, earth, and wind, bending them to their will, manipulating the natural order as though it were their own to command. But the archangels, fueled by divine light, were not easily defeated. With every wave of destruction, the celestial forces countered, their power growing stronger with each passing moment. The skies above them burned with heavenly fire, the sun itself eclipsed by the radiant glory of the divine army. Michael, the leader of the archangels, struck with unrelenting force, his sword cleaving through the darkness. Each blow he landed upon the Nephilim's forces sent shockwaves through the earth, shaking them. The celestial army was determined to put an end to the corruption that had plagued the earth for millennia. As the battle raged on, the very earth seemed to come alive, responding to the struggle between light and dark. The mountains shifted, the oceans swelled, and the winds howled, as if creation itself were aware of the war being waged. The ancient knowledge, once thought to be lost, was now reawakened. Yet it was not a power to be controlled by the wicked. The righteous forces, now empowered by the prayers of the faithful, fought with the strength of the Creator's will. The final moments were drawing near. The battle for the earth's soul was no longer just a war between the Nephilim and the angels. It had become a test of humanity's will to choose light over darkness, truth over deception. Would humanity rise above its fallen nature and embrace the divine order, or would it succumb to the same corruption that had nearly destroyed it in the past? The ultimate fate of the world rested on this moment, a moment that would decide whether humanity would endure or be lost to the ages forever. In the distance, the first rays of dawn began to break through the darkened sky. Would this be the dawn of a new world, or the final hour of existence as all knew it? The end was approaching, and the outcome was uncertain. The Creator's judgment was coming. and the earth would soon know whether to be cleansed or destroyed. The final hour was upon them, and the world stood on the edge of its own destruction. The clash between the forces of light and darkness had ravaged the earth, leaving behind a landscape of ruin and devastation. The Nephilim's bloodline, with their ancient powers and corrupted knowledge, had pushed the earth to the brink of collapse, but the celestial armies, led by Michael, fought with all their might to hold back the tide of darkness. The earth itself groaned under the battle, its very core trembling, as if it could no longer withstand the fury of the war that was being waged. The skies above were torn asunder, clouds swirling with unnatural storms as the elements were thrown into chaos. The Nephilim, desperate for victory, called upon their last reserves of dark power, seeking to open the gates to forbidden realms, to unleash the full force of their twisted reigns. But the divine forces had prepared for this moment. With each strike of their weapons, the archangels weakened the Nephilim's gripping earth, dispelling their dark magic and breaking their hold. Michael, wielding the sword of divine justice, advanced at the forefront of the battle, his presence like a beacon amidst the darkness. The forces of light were unyielding, pressing forward with the strength of the Creator's will. The Nephilim, realizing they were losing ground, summoned their greatest weapon, their final, most powerful servant, a creature born from the abyss itself. This creature, an abomination beyond comprehension, rose from the depths of the earth, its monstrous form an affront to all that was good and pure. It was a beast of unimaginable power, created from the very forces of darkness that had long threatened the world. The Nephilim believed this creature would be their ultimate weapon, one that would turn the tide of battle in their favor. But as the creature approached, the heavens themselves reacted. A blinding light descended from the sky, and the archangels, united in their purpose, unleashed a wave of divine energy that struck down the beast with overwhelming force. But even as the beast fell, the Nephilim were not yet defeated. Their bloodline, now intertwined with the ancient forces of darkness, had tapped into powers that were beyond mortal understanding. They were creatures of rebellion, defiant against the Creator's order. The final battle was now a race against time. Would the archangels destroy the Nephilim bloodline once and for all, or would the earth fall into eternal darkness? The outcome was still uncertain, but the forces of light pressed on, their resolve as strong as ever. The fate of creation hung in the balance, and the final clash for the soul of the earth was about to reach its conclusion. If you found this epic battle between the forces of light and darkness fascinating, don't miss our next video, where we'll uncover the hidden secret of the fallen angels and how they continue to influence the world. Click the video and get ready to dive into this forbidden story. Until then, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any dark revelations.